You're paying for electricity, even when nothing in your house is turned on. No lights, no TV, no appliances running, and yet, your meter is still moving. Every hour, every day, every month. It sounds wrong, because we've been taught that electricity only costs money when we actually use it. But what if I told you a part of your power bill comes from things you're not even using? Devices sitting idle, chargers plugged in, electronics quietly pulling energy in the background. And most people never notice it, because it's invisible. But here's the strange part. There's this simple fix that costs less than $2. No tools, no electrician. Just one small change that can quietly cut down your bill. So if it's that easy, why isn't everyone doing it? Electricity bills have been quietly getting higher, and most people don't fully understand why. You turn off the lights, you unplug a few devices, you try to be careful, and still, the bill keeps coming in higher than expected. It doesn't make sense, because in your mind, electricity should only cost money when something is actually running. But that's not how modern homes work anymore. Today, almost everything stays connected. Your TV isn't really off, it's in standby mode. Your charger isn't idle, it's still drawing power. Even devices you haven't touched all day are quietly using electricity in the background. This is what's known as phantom load, energy that's being used even when you're not using anything. And it adds up. Not all at once, but slowly, every hour of the day. While you're at work, while you're asleep, even when you're not home. Your house is still consuming power. And the worst part? You don't see it happening. There's no sound, no warning, no obvious sign. Just a slightly higher bill every single month. And most people never question it, because they assume that's just how electricity works. But what if it isn't? Long before modern homes were filled with electronics, energy worked very differently. There were no standby lights, no devices quietly running in the background, no constant flow of power through every wall. When something was off, it was truly off. If you wanted light, you lit a candle. If you wanted heat, you built a fire. And when you were done, everything stopped. Energy wasn't something that flowed endlessly. It was something you controlled, moment by moment. As technology evolved, that control slowly disappeared. Electricity made life easier, faster, more convenient. But it also introduced something new: constant connection. Devices no longer needed to be turned on and off completely. They could stay ready, waiting, listening, reacting. And that's where the shift happened. Instead of using energy only when needed, we started using it all the time, even when we don't realize it. Modern homes are designed for convenience, but that convenience comes with a hidden cost, because the moment everything stays connected, nothing is ever truly off anymore. And that's where the real problem begins. To understand what's really happening, you need to look at how electricity flows inside your home. Most people think electricity only moves when a device is turned on, but that's not entirely true. As long as something is plugged in, it's connected to the circuit, and in many cases, that connection is enough for small amounts of power to keep flowing. This is what we call standby power, or more commonly, phantom load. Inside devices like TVs, chargers, gaming consoles, and even microwaves, there are small components that stay active all the time, waiting for a signal, a remote control, a button press, a command. To make that instant response possible, these devices never fully shut down. They stay in a low power state, constantly drawing energy. Individually, it seems insignificant. A few watts here, a few watts there. But now imagine this happening across your entire home. Every plugged-in device, quietly pulling power 24 hours a day, even when you're sleeping, even when you're not home. That's where it adds up. Over time, this invisible energy usage becomes a real part of your electricity bill. And here's the key idea. Electricity doesn't stop flowing just because you're not using something. It only stops when the connection is completely cut. And once you understand that, the solution becomes surprisingly simple.
For a long time, phantom power was something most people didn't even think about. It was too small to notice, and too invisible to measure without the right tools. But as energy costs increased, researchers started taking a closer look, and what they found surprised a lot of people. Studies by energy organizations have shown that standby power can account for a noticeable portion of a household's electricity use, not from active use, but from devices simply being plugged in. In some homes, this hidden energy usage can make up a significant share of the total electricity bill, and it's coming from things you're not actively using: televisions in standby mode, chargers left in outlets, game consoles, routers, coffee machines, all quietly drawing power around the clock. Researchers also found that modern homes have more connected devices than ever before, which means this invisible usage has been increasing over time. Not because people are using more electricity intentionally, but because more devices are designed to stay on all the time. To test this, energy monitors were installed in homes to track real-time usage, and even when everything appeared to be off, there was still a constant flow of electricity, a baseline, small, steady, and continuous. That baseline is what you're paying for every single day. And once you see it measured, it becomes very hard to ignore, because it proves something simple. You're not just paying for what you use, you're also paying for what stays connected. If this kind of energy waste is real, why isn't it something people talk about more often? Why don't we see warnings on devices, or clearer explanations when we buy them? The answer isn't complicated. Modern electronics are designed for convenience. We expect our TVs to turn on instantly, our consoles to resume in seconds, our devices to always be ready when we need them. And to make that possible, they can't fully shut down. They have to stay connected, always waiting, always drawing a small amount of power. From a design perspective, it makes sense. It improves user experience. It makes everything feel faster, smoother, more responsive. But it also means something else. Energy is being used, even when nothing appears to be happening. And because each device uses such a small amount, it doesn't feel like a problem until you look at the total. An entire home filled with always-on devices, creating a constant, invisible drain. Not because anyone is doing something wrong, but because that's how modern systems are built, for convenience first, efficiency second. And unless you actively interrupt that flow, it never really stops. So what exactly is this $2 trick that can stop this hidden energy loss? The answer isn't complicated. It's something incredibly simple: a power strip with a switch, or even a basic plug with an on-off button. That's it. No advanced device, no special technology, just a way to completely cut the flow of electricity. Because remember, electricity only stops when the connection is fully broken, not when a device is off, not when it's idle, only when it's disconnected. And that's exactly what this simple setup does. Instead of unplugging every device one by one, you group them together: your TV, your console, your charger, all connected to a single switch. And with one click, everything shuts off completely. No standby mode, no background activity, no hidden power usage. It doesn't reduce electricity, it stops it. And that's the difference most people never realize. Because once the flow is cut, there's nothing left to waste. A simple switch, doing what most devices never do: actually turning off. Setting this up is much easier than most people expect. You don't need to change your wiring. You don't need any technical skills. Just a small adjustment to how your devices are connected. Start by identifying the biggest sources of standby power in your home. Usually, it's the devices that stay plugged in all the time: your TV setup, gaming consoles, Wi-Fi routers, chargers and adapters. Next, take a basic power strip with an on/off switch. These are inexpensive and widely available. Plug all related devices into that single strip. Instead of each device being connected directly to the wall, they're now connected through one control point. Now here's the key step. When you're not using those devices, especially at night or when leaving the house, flip the switch off. That one action completely cuts power to everything connected. No standby mode, no background usage, no hidden drain. For devices you use daily, this can become a simple habit. Before going to sleep, switch it off. Before leaving home, switch it off. It takes seconds, but over time, it stops hours of unnecessary energy use. And that's where the real impact comes from. Not one big change, but a small action repeated consistently. A simple test like this was done in a small household trying to understand why their electricity bill kept rising every month. Nothing unusual was happening. No new appliances, no major changes in usage, and yet, the bill kept creeping higher. So they decided to track it. They plugged their main entertainment setup, TV, gaming console, and streaming device into a single power strip with a switch. For 1 week, they left everything as usual. Devices stayed plugged in, even when not in use. Then, for the next week, they changed just one thing. Every night before going to bed, they switched the power strip off completely. Same devices, same usage during the day, just one small difference. By the end of the test, the results were clear. The overall energy consumption had dropped. Not dramatically overnight, but noticeably. Over time, that small reduction translated into real savings on their monthly bill. And this wasn't just limited to one setup. When they applied the same method to other areas, chargers, small appliances, and additional electronics, the effect became even more visible. The key insight wasn't about using less electricity during the day. It was about stopping unnecessary usage during the hours when nothing should have been running at all. A simple habit, a simple switch, and a steady reduction in wasted energy, day after day. Most of the time, we think saving money means making big changes, buying expensive systems, upgrading appliances, completely changing how we live. But sometimes, the biggest difference comes from the smallest things we don't notice. A device left plugged in, a switch never turned off, a quiet flow of energy running in the background every single day. It doesn't feel like much in the moment, but over time, it adds up, hour by hour, day by day, month after month. And that's how small, invisible losses turn into something real. Not because we're using too much, but because we're not aware of what's being used without us. The truth is, most problems don't need complicated solutions. They just need awareness. A small shift in how you see something, a simple action repeated consistently. And suddenly, what felt normal starts to change. Because once you realize that energy only flows when you allow it, you start to understand something much bigger. Control isn't about doing more, it's about knowing when to stop. If this made you think differently about your electricity bill, share it with someone who's tired of paying more every month. Sometimes the biggest savings come from the smallest changes. And if you want to discover more simple ideas that actually work, subscribe and turn on notifications, because the next one might save you even more.